She thought she had inherited an old house, but what she saw through the crack. Jennifer Mitchell held her 8-year-old son's hand tightly as she watched the lawyer talk about an inheritance she never imagined receiving. With just 2 days to leave their rented apartment in Los Angeles, that unexpected call seemed like a miracle amidst the financial despair that had consumed her for months. But when the man in the dark suit mentioned she had inherited a property from her great-aunt Margaret, a woman Jennifer didn't even know existed, a strange tightness gripped her chest. How could someone she'd never met leave a house specifically to her? "Are you sure there's no mistake?" asked Jennifer, adjusting her torn purse on her shoulder. "I've never heard of this great-aunt." The lawyer, a burly man in his 50s, flipped through some yellowed papers before answering. "According to the documents, Margaret Grace Mitchell was your paternal grandfather's sister. She left very specific instructions that the property should be transferred to you upon her passing." Tyler, Jennifer's son, tugged insistently on his mother's shirt hem. "Mom, does that mean we're going to have our own house?" Jennifer looked at the boy, seeing in those brown eyes the same desperate hope she felt. For months they had lived with the constant fear of eviction. Her cleaning salary could no longer cover the rent in Los Angeles, and the bills piled up like an impossible mountain to climb. "Where is this property?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "In the countryside of Pennsylvania, about 3 hours from Los Angeles. A little town called St. Mary Valley. I must warn you that the house is, let's say, in need of some repairs." The euphemism didn't scare Jennifer. After spending her childhood in tenements and borrowed houses, she knew in need of repairs could mean anything from broken faucets to a leaky roof. But anything would be better than the constant threat of living on the street with Tyler. "I accept," she said without hesitation. The lawyer seemed surprised by the speed of her decision. "You don't want to visit first? See the condition of the property?" "Sir, I have 2 days to leave the apartment where I live. I don't have the luxury of choice." 3 days later, Jennifer drove a Civic borrowed from a neighbor along the winding roads of Pennsylvania. Tyler slept in the passenger seat, clutching a worn-out teddy bear. In the back seat, 2 cloth bags held everything they owned in the world. St. Mary Valley proved to be a town too small to appear on most maps. Colonial houses with faded colors lined cobblestone streets. Some elderly people sitting on benches in the central square watched curiously as the unfamiliar car passed slowly. Jennifer followed the address, written on a crumpled piece of paper, until she reached the end of a dead-end street. What she saw made her swallow hard. The inherited property wasn't quite a house. It was more a pile of old stones trying to maintain the original shape of a building. The stone walls were blackened by time and covered in moss. The roof had collapsed in parts, leaving rotten wooden beams exposed like broken ribs. Tall weeds took over what must have once been a yard, and a rotten wooden fence barely managed to mark the property line. Tyler woke up when she turned off the engine. "Are we there?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "We're here." The boy looked out the window, and his expression changed completely. "Mom, this house is broken." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. For the first time in days, she began to question if she had made the right choice. But when she remembered the landlord in Los Angeles demanding 3 months of back rent, she took a deep breath and opened the car door. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll figure out a way to fix it up." They unloaded their few belongings in silence. The rusty iron gate screeched loudly when Jennifer pushed it open. Each step on the uneven ground of the backyard made dry leaves crackle underfoot. The front door of the house was locked, but the lock was so old that a key Jennifer found on the frame managed to open it. The sound of old wood groaning echoed as she pushed the heavy door. The smell of mold and damp hit like a wave. The interior was even worse than the exterior. Spiderwebs covered every corner. The floorboards were warped in several places, and holes in the ceiling allowed beams of light to filter through, creating strange patterns in the space. "We can't live here, Mom," said Tyler, his voice trembling. Jennifer swallowed her own fear. She couldn't show weakness, not when it was just the 2 of them against the world. "Of course we can. It just needs a good cleaning and some repairs." They spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make at least one room livable. Jennifer swept away decades of dirt, while Tyler gathered loose pieces of wood. As the sun began to set, They managed to clean the main room enough to spread 2 blankets on the floor. "At least there's no rent to pay," Jennifer tried to joke, handing out crackers from a crumpled package. Tyler gave a small smile, but she could tell he was scared. The night would be hard for both of them. The silence of the countryside, so different from the constant noise of Los Angeles, made every creak of the house sound threatening. Around 10 at night, when they had finally settled on the blankets, a strange sound came from somewhere in the house, a dull, repetitive noise as if someone was slowly knocking on a wall. Tyler curled up closer to his mother. "What is that noise?" Jennifer listened carefully. The sound was definitely coming from inside the house, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly where. It could be old pipes, wood settling, or even some animal that had made a nest in a corner. "It's probably the wind moving something loose," she lied, trying to sound calm. But the sound continued, now clearer. It wasn't the wind. It was definitely someone or something knocking on something hollow in a rhythmic pattern. Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. What if homeless people were using the abandoned house? What if someone was still inside? "Mom," Tyler whispered. "Stay here," she said, grabbing a flashlight they had brought from Los Angeles. "Don't go alone. I'll just take a quick look. Stay here and don't move, understand?" Tyler nodded, but she saw the terror in the boy's eyes. Jennifer turned on the flashlight and walked slowly down the dark hallway of the house. The weak light revealed disturbing details she hadn't noticed during the day. Old photographs covered in dust hung on the walls, showing the serious faces of people she didn't know. A wooden staircase led to an upper floor that seemed even more dilapidated. The noise grew louder as she approached the kitchen. It was definitely coming from below, the basement. Jennifer found a narrow door half hidden behind an old bookcase. When she opened it, a steep staircase descended into total darkness. The noise stopped. Jennifer hesitated. Going down alone into a dark basement in an abandoned house didn't seem like a good idea. But curiosity was stronger than fear. She needed to know what was making that sound. She went down the steps slowly, testing each one before putting her full weight on it. The wood groaned under her feet but held. The basement was larger than she expected, with a low ceiling and damp stone walls. The flashlight beam revealed dusty shelves, old boxes, and... Jennifer stopped breathing. On the far wall was a vertical crack, right in the middle of the stones. It wasn't a natural crack, it seemed to have been made intentionally, creating a narrow crack about 2 centimeters wide, and from the other side of the crack came a faint light. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. Jennifer approached the wall slowly. When she pointed the flashlight at the crack, her heart raced. There was definitely a space on the other side, a secret room that did not appear on the house's floor plan, and even more disturbing, the space seemed to be illuminated by a light source she couldn't identify. She pressed her eye to the crack, and what she saw took her breath away. On the other side was a room completely preserved, as if time had stopped. Waxed wooden furniture gleamed under the light of a candle burning in a silver candlestick. Framed photographs covered an antique desk. Organized books filled shelves that went from floor to ceiling, and on the central table, piles and piles of papers, letters, and documents were carefully arranged. But what disturbed her most were the photographs scattered across the table. Even from a distance and through the narrow crack, Jennifer managed to recognize some of the people pictured. One photo showed a young woman who looked very much like her. Others showed a child who could have been Tyler at a younger age. How was this possible? How were there photos of her and her son in a secret room that apparently no one had opened in decades? Jennifer tried pushing the wall around the crack, searching for some mechanism that might open a passage. The stones were solidly fitted, but when she pressed a specific stone just below the crack, she felt it give slightly. A muffled click echoed in the basement. Part of the wall swung inward, revealing a secret passage. The air that came from within the hidden room carried the scent of roses and camphor, as if someone had sprayed cologne there recently. Jennifer entered the secret space with her heart pounding uncontrollably. The room was small but incredibly well preserved. There was no dampness or mold like in the rest of the house. The walls were covered in floral wallpaper in soft tones, and ornate Persian rugs covered the waxed wooden floor. She approached the central desk and picked up the first photograph she saw. Her legs trembled. It was a photo of her at 20, on the day of her high school graduation. But this made no sense. Jennifer was certain that only she possessed copies of that specific photo. How was there a copy here? She picked up another photograph. It was Tyler at 5 years old, playing in a park she remembered taking him to a few times in Los Angeles. The photo had been taken from a distance, as if someone had been watching and photographing them without their knowledge. A feeling of panic began to take hold of Jennifer. Had someone been following her and her son? Who had set up this secret room, and why was there so much information about their lives there? It was then that her eyes fixed on a pile of yellowed envelopes next to the candle. Written in elegant cursive was, "For Jennifer Mitchell, my dear granddaughter." The handwriting was delicate, feminine, as if written by an elderly person. Jennifer picked up the first envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter on stationery. "My dear Jennifer, if you are reading this letter, it means you have finally found the room I prepared for you. I know you must be frightened and confused, but you need to know that everything I did was out of love. My name is Margaret Grace Mitchell, and I am indeed your great-aunt. But there are many things about your family that you do not know, things that have been hidden from you since birth. Your mother, Grace Mitchell Thompson, is not deceased as you were told. She is alive, Jennifer, and for over 20 years she has been searching for you." Jennifer had to lean on the table. The letters danced before her eyes, and for a moment she thought she would faint. Her mother was alive, but her father had said she died in childbirth. That's what she had believed her entire life. She continued reading with trembling hands. "Grace was forcibly committed when you were only 6 months old. Your father's family claimed she suffered from mental problems, but it was a lie. They wanted to get rid of her because they discovered she had found evidence of irregularities in the family business. I tried to help her at the time, but I didn't have the resources to take on the entire Thompson family. I only managed to maintain secret contact with Grace over the years and gather information about you and your son. The photographs you are seeing were taken by people I hired to follow your life from a distance. I know it seems invasive, but it was the only way to ensure that you and Tyler were well when I couldn't be present. Grace escaped from the clinic 3 months ago. She is in hiding, afraid the Thompson family will discover where she is, but she very much wants to find you, Jennifer. For decades, she has lived only for the day you can be reunited. If you decide to look for your mother, start in the town of Clear Springs, 2 hours from here. Look for the Church of St. Benedict and ask for Mrs. Grace, who works cleaning the cemetery. She is using the name Grace of the Angels. But be careful, dear granddaughter. Not everyone in the Thompson family was happy to learn you inherited this property. Some of them believe they should have a right to the inheritance and will do anything to take from you what is rightfully yours. Keep the letters and documents in this room safe. They contain important evidence that can protect you and your mother. With all my love, Great-Aunt Margaret P.S. The golden key in the desk drawer opens a safe buried under the Jabuticaba tree in the backyard. There you will find resources to start your life over. Jennifer read the letter 3 times before she could fully process what was written. Her mother was alive. She had been forcibly committed. Someone in her father's family had hidden the truth from her all her life. She vaguely remembered her father talking about his family, but always evasively. He said they were complicated people, and it was better they lived far away from them. Jennifer never questioned it, especially because there was never any mutual interest in contact. Now she was beginning to understand why. She opened the second letter from the pile. "Jennifer, today. Grace managed to call me from the clinic. She is desperate. She discovered you are pregnant and very much wants to be present when your son is born. I tried to find a legal way to get her out of there, but the doctors insist she needs to remain committed. Your cousin Harold Thompson came to visit me last week. He was asking questions about you and about this property. I suspect the family is planning something. Harold has always been greedy, and I know he believes he is entitled to his grandfather's inheritance. I am hiding important documents in this room. If anything happens to me, you will need them to protect yourself." Jennifer quickly flipped through other letters. There were dozens of them, documenting years of her great-aunt's frustrated attempts to reunite the family. Each letter revealed more details about her mother's forced commitment, and about the Thompson family's maneuvers to control the patriarch's inheritance. In one of the most recent letters, dated just 2 months ago, Margaret wrote, "Jennifer, I am not feeling well. My heart is failing, and I know I don't have much time. I finally managed to change my will without Harold knowing. The property will be yours, as it always should have been. Grace escaped from the clinic last week. I'm trying to find her, but I don't know if I will manage before I pass. If you can't manage, look for her. She needs to know you received this inheritance and that you can finally be together." Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. Her whole life she had felt alone in the world, without family, without roots. Discovering there was a mother looking for her, a great aunt who loved her from afar, changed everything. But it also brought fear. If the Thompson family had been capable of committing an innocent person and hiding the truth for decades, what else might they be capable of? Jennifer opened the desk drawer and found the golden key mentioned in the letter. It was small and delicate, with ornate details. She put it in her pocket along with some of the most important letters. When she left the secret room, she found Tyler at the top of the stairs leading to the basement. "Mom, you took so long, I was scared." Jennifer quickly climbed up and hugged her son. "Sorry, sweetie. I found something interesting down there." "What was that noise we heard?" Jennifer looked at the boy. How to explain to a child that she had just discovered she had a living grandmother? How to talk about forced commitments and family secrets? "It was just the wind, like I said, but I found some important papers about our family." "Our family? But we don't have a family." "Apparently we do, and maybe it's time we got to know them." They went back to the room with the blankets. Jennifer settled Tyler in but knew she wouldn't be able to sleep. Her mind was buzzing with questions and plans. She needed to decide whether she would go after her mother in Clear Springs. She needed to better understand the documents she found. And she needed to find out more about this cousin Harold, who apparently represented a threat. The next morning, Jennifer woke up early and decided to explore the property better. In the daylight, she could see details the darkness had hidden. The land was larger than she had imagined, stretching for at least 5 acres. There was a smaller building in the back that seemed to have been a caretaker's house. In the backyard, she found the jabuticaba tree mentioned in her great-aunt's letter. It was old and leafy, with a wide trunk and branches that spread out, creating generous shade. Jennifer examined the soil around the base and noticed the earth was slightly looser in one specific spot, as if it had been disturbed recently. She searched the old house until she found a rusty shovel and began to dig. About 1/2 a meter below the surface, the shovel hit something solid. It was a metal box, small but heavy. Jennifer carefully unearthed it and used the golden key to open it. Inside were well-preserved bundles of money, folded documents, and a small bank book. When she counted the money, she was surprised. It was more than $15,000, an amount that represented more than she earned in an entire year as a cleaner. The bank book showed a savings account in the name of Jennifer Mitchell, with an even more surprising balance: $42,000. Her great-aunt had been saving money for her for years. Tyler came running through the yard. "Mom, there's a man out front asking for you." Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach. She quickly hid the box behind the tree and followed her son to the property entrance. A middle-aged man wearing a dark suit was standing next to a black car. He had sharp features and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Jennifer Thompson?" he asked, extending his hand. "Mitchell," she corrected. "Jennifer Mitchell." "Ah, of course, my apologies. My name is Harold Thompson. I'm a cousin of your late father." Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. He was exactly the person her great-aunt had warned about in the letters. "What do you want?" "I came to talk about this property. There are some irregularities in Aunt Margaret's will that need to be clarified." "What kind of irregularities?" Harold looked around the dilapidated property with an expression of disdain. "Well, to start, my aunt's mental health was compromised in recent years. She didn't have the legal capacity to make changes to the will. The lawyer who contacted me didn't mention any legal problems because he doesn't know all the facts. Look, Jennifer, I don't want to create problems for you. I know you're having financial difficulties. I'm willing to make a generous offer for the property." Jennifer crossed her arms. "It's not for sale." You don't need to decide now. Think about it. This place is falling apart. It will cost a fortune to make it livable. I can offer $50,000 cash, no red tape. The offer was tempting, especially considering the state of the house. But something about the way Harold spoke, the rush to make a deal, alerted Jennifer. Why do you want this specific property so much? From what I can see, it's not worth anywhere near $50,000. Harold hesitated for a split second. Sentimental value. This house has been in the family for generations. Then why didn't my great-aunt leave it to you? As I said, she wasn't in her right mind. Jennifer felt a growing anger. After reading the letters the night before, she knew her great-aunt was perfectly lucid when she made the will. Thank you for the offer, but I'm not interested. Harold's smile became forced. I'll leave my card. When you realize the reality of the situation, call me. He handed over an elegant card and headed to his car. Before getting in, he turned once more. Oh, Jennifer, if you happen to find any old family documents here in the house, it would be interesting for you to show me. There are many things about our history that could be misunderstood. Jennifer didn't answer, but watched the car drive away with growing apprehension. The way Harold mentioned old documents didn't seem like a coincidence. Did he suspect the existence of the secret room? That afternoon, Jennifer decided she needed to make a decision about looking for her mother. The revelations from the letters had completely changed her perspective on her own past. If Grace was really alive and looking for her, she couldn't postpone this meeting any longer. She packed some of the most important letters in a bag and got Tyler ready for a trip to Clear Springs. The boy asked 1,000 questions during the 2-hour drive on the mountain road. Mom, if you have a mother who's alive, why did we never go visit her? Because I didn't know she was alive, sweetie. I thought she had passed away when I was born. And now you think she's in this town? I hope so. Clear Springs was even smaller than St. Mary Valley. It had only one main street with a few shops and an old church in the center. Jennifer parked in front of the church of St. Benedict and felt her nervousness grow. What if her mother didn't want to see her? What if, after all these years, they had nothing in common? What if her great-aunt was wrong about everything? Stay in the car for just a minute, she said to Tyler. Can I come with you? I'm just going to ask for some information. I'll be right back. Jennifer entered the church. It was simple but well kept, with dark wooden pews and images of saints on the walls. An elderly lady was cleaning the altar. Excuse me, Jennifer approached slowly. Do you know a Mrs. Grace who works cleaning the cemetery? The lady stopped cleaning and looked at Jennifer with curiosity. Grace of the Angels? That's right. Yes, I know her. She's been working here for a few months. She's a very reserved person, poor thing. Seems like she's been through a lot of hardship in life. Jennifer felt her heart race. Do you know where I can find her? She's usually at the cemetery around this time. Just follow the main street to the end and turn left. But may I ask who's looking for her? Jennifer hesitated. How to explain without going into too much detail? I'm a distant relative. I received information that she was here and would like to talk. The woman nodded with understanding. The cemetery is a 5-minute walk. Grace is a good person. I'm sure she'll be happy to have a visitor. Jennifer returned to the car with her heart racing. She drove slowly to the cemetery, trying to imagine what it would be like to see her mother for the first time in over 20 years. She didn't even have a recent photo of her to know what she might look like. The cemetery was small and well kept, surrounded by a low stone wall. Old graves mingled with newer ones, creating a mosaic of local history. Jennifer left Tyler in the car again and entered through the iron gates. She walked among the graves, looking for someone. At the back of the cemetery, near a small chapel, she saw a middle-aged woman sweeping dry leaves. She wore simple clothes and a scarf on her head that partially covered her graying hair. Jennifer approached slowly, studying the woman's face. There was something familiar in those features, especially in the dark eyes and the shape of the nose. "Mrs. Grace," Jennifer called when she was a few meters away. The woman lifted her head and stopped sweeping. When her eyes met Jennifer's, she let the broom fall to the ground. For several seconds, they just stood looking at each other in silence. Jennifer saw tears beginning to form in the older woman's eyes. "Jennifer," whispered Grace, her voice trembling. Mom? Grace ran to her and hugged her so tightly that Jennifer could barely breathe. It was a hug of decades of separation, filled with pain, longing, and a love that had never died. "My daughter," Grace cried, and laughed at the same time. "I knew this day would come. I always knew." Jennifer was also crying, trying to process the reality of being in the arms of the mother she thought was dead. Grace was smaller than she had imagined, with graying hair and wrinkles that showed the difficult years she had faced, but her eyes had the same affectionate expression Jennifer sometimes imagined as a child. "How did you find me?" asked Grace, pulling back slightly to look better at her daughter's face. "Through Great-Aunt Margaret. She left letters explaining everything." Grace's face darkened. "Margaret passed away. A few months ago she left me the property in St. Mary Valley. Then you found the secret room." Jennifer nodded. "She kept your letters and documents about our family. Margaret always said she would do anything to reunite us. She was the only person in the family who believed in me." Grace looked around the cemetery as if afraid of being overheard. "We can't talk here. It's too risky. I'll finish my work and meet you somewhere else." "Risky? Why?" "Because there are people who don't want us to meet. The same people who kept me institutionalized all these years." Jennifer felt a chill. The Thompson family really was a threat. "Where can we meet?" "Do you know Mrs. Beatrice's house on the street behind the church? The blue house with the rose garden in front? I can find it. Meet me there in an hour. Mrs. Beatrice is a friend of mine. We can talk safely there." Jennifer agreed and returned to the car. Tyler had fallen asleep during the wait. She woke him gently. "Mom, are you done?" "I'm done with one part. Now we're going to meet your grandmother." Tyler's eyes widened. "My grandmother is alive?" "She's alive, and very much wants to meet you." An hour later, Jennifer and Tyler were sitting in Mrs. Beatrice's cozy living room, a lady of about 70 with a maternal manner. Grace arrived shortly after, now without the scarf on her head, revealing graying hair tied in a simple bun. "This is my son Tyler," Jennifer introduced. Grace crouched down to the boy's level. "Hi, my beautiful little grandson, I'm your Grandma Grace." Tyler, initially shy, was soon charmed by the affectionate attention of his newly discovered grandmother. Grace had brought some sweets she had saved and told simple stories that made the boy laugh. While Tyler played with some toys that Mrs. Beatrice offered, Jennifer and Grace were finally able to talk about the past. "Tell me what happened," asked Jennifer. "I want to know everything." Grace took a deep breath as if preparing to relive painful memories. "I was 19 when I married your father, David. It was an arranged marriage by the families. I came from a simple family, and the Thompsons owned several businesses in the region. It seemed like a good opportunity. David was a good person at first, but he was very influenced by his family, especially by his father and his older brother. They controlled every aspect of our lives. When you were born, I was too happy to pay attention to the family business. But after a few months, I started to notice strange things. Secret meetings, hidden documents, conversations that would stop when I got close. One day, while going through David's papers looking for your certificates to do some documents, I found a folder with contracts that made no sense. Companies that didn't exist, money transfers to ghost accounts, fake invoices." Jennifer listened in silence, trying to imagine how her young mother must have felt, discovering she had married into a family involved in illegal activities. "I confronted David about the documents," Grace continued. "He became desperate, said I didn't understand anything about business, and that I'd better not get involved in that. But I couldn't stay quiet, especially after I discovered they were embezzling money from public works. It was money that should have been used to build schools and hospitals. I threatened to tell the authorities if they didn't stop. David begged me to give them time to sort everything out, but I knew it was a lie. They just wanted to buy time to hide the evidence." Grace paused, wiping tears that had begun to fall. "One morning when you were 6 months old, I woke up feeling strange, dizzy, confused, having trouble speaking properly. David said I had gotten sick during the night, and he had called a doctor. But I didn't remember getting sick nor calling any doctor, and there were strange people in our house, men in suits I had never seen before." David said they were specialist doctors who were going to help me. Before I could question anything, they gave me an injection and everything went dark. Jennifer felt nauseous imagining the scene. When I woke up, I was admitted to a psychiatric clinic. They said I had suffered a postpartum breakdown and had tried to harm you. It was a complete lie, but the doctors believed the Thompson family's version. David showed up a few days later to visit me. He said you were fine, that you were being cared for by a nanny, and that I would be hospitalized until I fully recovered. I asked when I could see you, and he said it would be better if I had no contact until I was completely cured, that seeing a sick mother could traumatize you forever. Jennifer was crying now, imagining her mother alone, unjustly hospitalized, unable to see her baby daughter, was heartbreaking. I tried to explain to the doctors that I was fine, that it had all been a misunderstanding. But the more I insisted, the more they thought I was in denial about my condition. When I talked about the documents I had found, about the Thompson family's irregularities, they noted it all down as paranoid delusions. Months passed. David would visit me from time to time, always saying I was getting better, but still not ready to return home. He would bring photos of himself so I could see how he was growing up. Until one day, he stopped coming. I went weeks without a visit until a nurse told me my husband had died in a car accident. Jennifer wiped her eyes, trying to process everything she was hearing. And you were hospitalized all these years? Not all. I managed to escape a few times, but they always found me and brought me back. They said I was dangerous, that I could harm you if I tried to look for you. Over time, I learned to pretend I was taking the medications, to agree with everything the doctors said. They thought I was cured and transferred me to a less monitored wing. That's when I managed to get in touch with Margaret. She was the only person who believed me when I told the truth about the hospitalization. Margaret tried to get me out legally several times, but the Thompson family always interfered with the process. They had lawyers, doctors, political influence. It was impossible to fight them. But Margaret never gave up on us. She hired people to follow your life from a distance, sent me photos and news of you through visitors who managed to get past security. When I found out you were pregnant, I was desperate to meet my grandson. But I was also afraid that if I showed up, the Thompson family would do something against you too. So I kept waiting, planning a safe way to escape and find you. Mrs. Beatrice, who had been preparing coffee in the kitchen, returned with a loaded tray. Grace, tell Jennifer about how you escaped from the clinic. Grace gratefully accepted a cup of hot coffee. 3 months ago, I learned through Margaret that she was very ill. I knew it was my last chance to reunite with you before she passed. One night, during the nurse's shift change, I managed to leave through the laundry room. I had saved civilian clothes and a little money that Margaret would sometimes send through other patients. I walked all night until I reached the main road. A truck driver gave me a ride to a nearby town, and from there I took a bus to St. Mary Valley. When I arrived at Margaret's house, she was already very weak. We only managed to talk for a few hours before she passed. That's when she told me she had changed her will to leave the property to you. She said she was sure you would find the letters and come looking for me. She asked me to be patient and wait. Jennifer was too emotional to speak. The whole story seemed like a nightmare, but now she was seeing that a happy ending was possible. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Mother, why didn't you come directly to look for me in Los Angeles? Asked Jennifer. Because I'm still afraid of the Thompson family. They believe I'm dead or gone forever. If they discover I escaped and that we've found each other, they might try to separate us again. Harold was at the property yesterday, said Jennifer, trying to convince me to sell the house to him. Grace turned pale. Harold Thompson, the son of David's older brother? Exactly. He said the great-aunt was not of sound mind to make a will. That's exactly what they did to me. They alleged mental problems to keep me away from you. Now they're trying the same tactic to get the inheritance. Mrs. Beatrice shook her head indignantly. That Thompson family has always been trouble in the region. Everyone knows they do shady business, but no one has the courage to stand up to them. What should we do? Asked Jennifer. Grace thought for a few moments. First, we need to protect the documents that Margaret left. They are evidence of both the old irregularities and the way they had me committed unjustly. Second, we cannot let Harold find out we've met. He would do anything to separate us again. And third, I need to leave Clear Springs. It's too risky to stay here now that you've appeared. Someone might make the connection. Jennifer made a decision. You're coming with us to St. Mary Valley. The property is large. We can live there together. But the house is in terrible condition. We'll manage. The important thing is that we stay together. Grace looked at Tyler, who was playing happily on the living room floor. Are you sure you want to get involved in this? Fighting the Thompson family won't be easy. I'm sure I've spent my whole life feeling alone in the world. I won't lose the chance to have a family now. They decided that Grace would leave Clear Springs that very night. Mrs. Beatrice offered to help pack Grace's few things and promised not to tell anyone about their meeting. If anyone asks about Grace, I'll say she decided to look for work in another town, said Mrs. Beatrice. During the trip back to St. Mary Valley, Grace told stories of Jennifer's childhood that she didn't know. She talked about how eager she was to be a mother, about the plans she had for raising her, about the names she had considered before deciding on Jennifer. Tyler, in the back seat, listened to everything with fascination. He had never had a grandmother present, and now he was discovering not only that he had one, but that she seemed loving and full of interesting stories. "Grandma, do you know how to tell princess stories?" he asked. "Yes, I do, my little grandson. Your mother loved princess stories when she was tiny." "Was Mommy a princess?" Grace looked at Jennifer with a tender smile. "Your mother was always my princess, and you are my prince." When they arrived at the property in St. Mary Valley, Jennifer worried about Grace's reaction upon seeing the state of the house, but her mother simply looked around and smiled. Margaret always said this house had potential. It just needed someone to care for it with love. They spent the night talking and planning how to make the house livable. Grace had a lot of experience with cleaning and organizing from the jobs she had done over the years. She suggested where to start the repairs and which rooms should be prioritized. "First, we fix a working bathroom and a basic kitchen," she said. "The rest can wait." "We have the money Aunt left," Jennifer told her. "It should be enough to hire some masons and buy construction materials. We need to be careful about who we hire. It can't be anyone connected to the Thompson family." The next morning, they went into town to get information about masons and construction materials. At the hardware store, Jennifer was helped by a friendly man of about 50 named Jerome. "Mrs. Margaret's property," he said when Jennifer explained where she was living. "I'm glad someone is finally going to take care of that place. Mrs. Margaret was a special person." "Did you know her well?" "Yes, I did. She bought materials here from time to time for small repairs. She always said that one day the house would be renovated by someone from the family. Can you recommend a reliable mason?" Jerome thought for a few seconds. "There's Manuel Davis. He's an honest worker and doesn't charge much. But let me give you some advice. Be careful about people around here asking about you." Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "Yesterday, a well-dressed young man came by asking about the new resident at Margaret's property. He wanted to know if you had looked for masons, if you had said anything about renovations. What did you tell him?" "He said he didn't know anything, but I found his interest strange." Jennifer thanked him and left the store more worried than before. Harold was clearly watching her movements. That meant they would need to be even more careful. When she told Grace about the conversation at the store, her mother became visibly nervous. "He's trying to find out if we have the means to renovate the house. If he finds out we have money, he'll want to know where it came from. And if he finds out about the buried safe, that's why we need to move that money as soon as possible. Open a bank account in another city and deposit everything there." They decided to travel to Philadelphia the next day to open a bank account where Grace could be included as a co-owner. It would be safer to have the money in a major bank in the capital than kept on the property. The trip would be long, so they packed to be away for the day. Tyler was excited about the idea of seeing a big city, but as they were preparing to leave, a familiar car appeared at the property's entrance. It was Harold, and this time he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits were with him. Jennifer felt panic. Grace quickly took Tyler by the hand. "You two hide back there behind the house. Don't come out until I call you." "And you?" "I'll talk to them. It's better they don't know you're here." Grace and Tyler quickly went out the back door. Jennifer took a deep breath and went to greet the visitors. "Jennifer." Harold approached with the same fake smile as before. "I hope you don't mind the visit. I brought some friends who also knew Aunt Margaret. The two men accompanying him didn't look like people who knew great-aunts. They had an intimidating appearance and cold stares." "How can I help you?" asked Jennifer, trying to keep her voice steady. "We've been talking to some people in town about you. We heard you're planning to do renovations on the house. And, Jennifer, I'll be direct. This property isn't worth the investment you'd have to make. The structure is compromised, the land has moisture problems, and the renovation costs would be astronomical. Thank you for your concern, but I've already made my decision." One of the men with Harold stepped forward. "Perhaps you haven't fully understood the situation," he said, his voice low and threatening. "Your cousin is trying to help you avoid bigger problems." Jennifer felt a chill, but stood her ground. "What kind of problems?" "Well, this property has some pending legal issues that could complicate your life greatly," said Harold. "Issues that only the Thompson family can resolve." "What legal issues?" "There's an old debt with the City Hall related to unpaid taxes. If it's not resolved, the property could be confiscated." Jennifer knew he was lying. The lawyer had been clear that the documentation was in order, but the two men beside him didn't seem to be joking. "How much would this debt be?" she asked, pretending to believe the story. "About $80,000. But if you accept our offer of $50,000 for the property, we'll take on that debt." It was obvious they were trying to scare her into accepting the sale, but Jennifer didn't know how far they'd be willing to go if she kept refusing. "I need some time to think." "Of course," said Harold, "but don't take too long. These legal matters have a deadline to be resolved." When they left, Jennifer ran to the back of the house to find Grace and Tyler hiding behind the old caretaker's house. "Did they leave?" asked Grace. "They did, but they're increasing the pressure. They made up a story about debts with the City Hall. It's a lie, of course. Margaret always kept everything up to date." "I know, but they brought two men who seemed dangerous." Grace hugged Jennifer. "We can't let them intimidate us, but we also can't ignore that they might try something more drastic." "What do we do?" "We're going to Philadelphia today, but first, I need to show you something important I didn't tell you about yesterday." Grace took Jennifer to the secret room in the basement. She knew the passage and knew exactly where to look. "Margaret hid more things here besides the letters," she said, rummaging in a secret drawer at the base of the desk. She pulled out an old leather folder full of documents. "These are the papers I found years ago, evidence of all the irregularities of the Thompson family. Margaret managed to keep copies when they committed me." Jennifer leafed through the documents. They were fake contracts, receipts for ghost payments, correspondence between members of the Thompson family about how to hide money embezzled from public works. "This is enough to put half the family in prison," said Jennifer. "Exactly. That's why they are so desperate to get this property back. It's not just a matter of inheritance. They know Margaret kept evidence against them, and they need to destroy it. So it's not safe to leave these documents here. That's why we're taking everything to Philadelphia today. We'll deposit copies in a bank and give other copies to a lawyer. They made copies of all the most important documents using a small copier Jennifer bought in town. Afterwards, they quickly packed to travel. The trip to Philadelphia was tense. Jennifer kept looking in the rearview mirror the whole time, afraid of being followed. Grace stayed quiet, clearly worried about how the situation was unfolding. Tyler, sensing the tension between the two women, was quieter than usual during the drive. In Philadelphia, they first looked for a large bank downtown. Jennifer opened a checking account and deposited most of the money her great-aunt had left. Grace was added as a co-owner, allowing both of them access to the funds. Then they looked for a law firm. Jennifer explained the situation to a lawyer named Dr. Elizabeth Anderson, a middle-aged woman with experience in family disputes and inheritance matters. "From what I'm seeing in these documents, you have a very serious situation," said Dr. Anderson after examining the papers. "These contracts indicate large-scale embezzlement of public funds." "Our concern now is safety," explained Jennifer. "The family is trying to intimidate us to get the property back. I will keep copies of all these documents in our safe. and I will prepare an official letter notifying them that, should anything happen to you, these papers will be automatically handed over to the proper authorities. The lawyer also suggested they file a police report registering the veiled threats from Harold and his associates. Even if the local police can't do much immediately, it's important to have an official record of the intimidation. They spent the afternoon sorting out bureaucratic matters. By the end of the day, Jennifer felt safer knowing there was protected evidence and legal support. But she also knew the Thompson family wouldn't give up easily. During the trip back to St. Mary Valley, Grace shared more memories about Margaret. "Your great-aunt was always the bravest person I knew. She faced the Thompson family alone for years, trying to protect me and protect you. Why did she never marry? Never have children of her own? She said her mission in life was to protect the people she loved. She believed starting her own family would distract her from that mission. It must have been very lonely." It was. But she was also determined. Margaret knew that one day the truth would come out and that our family would be reunited. When they got back to the property, it was already dark. Jennifer drove slowly along the dark road, worried they might find unwanted visitors waiting for them. The house seemed empty and normal when they parked. But when they turned on the lights in the main room, Jennifer got a shock. Someone had completely ransacked the interior of the house. Furniture was overturned, drawers open, papers scattered across the floor. "They were here looking for the documents," said Grace, her voice trembling. Jennifer ran to the basement to check the secret room. The passage was open, and the inside had also been searched. Drawers pulled out, shelves knocked over, everything turned upside down. But since they had taken the important documents to Philadelphia, the intruders hadn't found anything relevant. "At least they didn't get what they came for," said Jennifer. "But now they know the room exists, and they know we took something important from here." Tyler was frightened by the state of the house. Grace reassured him, explaining that bad people had been looking for old things that didn't belong to them, but that they were gone now. They spent hours putting the house back in order. It was obvious the intruders had mainly searched for important documents and papers. Valuables weren't taken, confirming the goal was to find evidence. "We can't stay here alone anymore," said Grace. "It's too risky." "But where can we go? This is our home now. We need protection. People from the community who can help us." The next morning, Jennifer decided to look for Jerome at the hardware store. He seemed like an honest person and knew their great-aunt well. Maybe he could offer some advice or point them to trustworthy people. When she told him about the break-in, Jerome was outraged. "That's outrageous. Such a thing can't happen in our town. We're afraid to stay alone on the property." Jerome thought for a few moments. "I know some people who can help you. Good folks who knew and respected Mrs. Margaret. I'll make some calls." By late afternoon, Jerome showed up at the property accompanied by 3 men. The first was Manuel Davis, the mason he had recommended. The second was Joseph Charles, a retired electrician who lived nearby. The third was Father Michael from the local church. "We heard about what happened last night," said Father Michael. "This can't go on." "Mrs. Margaret was highly respected in our community," added Joseph Charles. "We won't let anyone intimidate her family." Manuel suggested a practical solution. "I'll bring my 2 sons to sleep here on the property for a few days. They're hard-working young men and can start some basic repairs while providing security." "I'll also mobilize some people from the parish," said Father Michael. "We can organize visiting shifts to make sure you're not completely alone." Jennifer was moved by the unexpected show of solidarity. In Los Angeles, she barely knew her neighbors. Here, people she had just met were offering to protect her family. "We don't know how to thank you," she said. "No need to thank us. We help each other around here," replied Joseph Charles. "Besides, everyone knows the Thompson family only brings trouble to the area. It was about time someone stood up to them." Grace, who had been quiet during the conversation, finally spoke up. "You need to know the situation could get dangerous. The Thompson family won't give up easily." "We know," said Manuel, "but we also know they're cowards on their own. They only act against isolated, unprotected people." Father Michael suggested they attend Sunday Mass so the whole community could officially meet them. It would be a way to publicly show they had local support. "Good idea," agreed Joseph Charles. "The more people know you're under the community's protection, the better." That night, Jennifer felt safer with Manuel's sons keeping watch on the property. Charles and Robert Davis were young men of about 20, hard-working and respectful. They settled into the old caretaker's house after a quick cleaning. Grace helped Jennifer organize the main house better. They managed to get at least 2 bedrooms and the kitchen into usable condition. Tyler was adapting well to the new life in the countryside, especially now that he had some people around. During breakfast the next day, Robert came to report that he had seen a car parked on the road for part of the night. It was a dark car, just like the one you described yesterday. It stayed there for about 2 hours and then left. "Did they see anything? Did they enter the property?" asked Jennifer. "No. I think when they realized people were patrolling here, they gave up on trying anything." Charles suggested installing some motion sensor lights at the entrance to the property to make sneaky approaches harder. "My father has some of those lights at the store. I can install them today." During the morning, Jennifer and Grace went into town to buy basic supplies and take care of documentation for Grace. She needed to regularize her situation, since officially she was still listed as a patient at a psychiatric clinic. At the City Hall, Jennifer took the opportunity to check if there really was any debt related to the property, as Harold had claimed. The clerk who assisted them was categorical. "There is no debt. Mrs. Grace always kept all taxes paid on time. There's even a credit for property tax paid in advance." The confirmation that Harold had blatantly lied about the debts made Jennifer realize he was getting increasingly desperate. On the way home, they stopped by Jerome's store to thank him for his help the previous day. He was assisting an elderly customer whom Jennifer didn't know. "Jennifer," said Jerome when he saw her enter, "I want to introduce you to Mrs. Marlene. She was a very good friend of Mrs. Grace, Mrs. Meyer." Marlene was a lady of about 70, with white hair in a bun and an attentive gaze. When she greeted Jennifer, she held her hand longer than usual. "You are exactly as Grace described," she said. "She talked about you a lot." "You knew my great-aunt well?" "Yes, I did. We were neighbors for over 40 years. Grace told me the whole story of your family." Mrs. Marlene looked around the store as if wanting to make sure no one was listening. "I need to talk with you, in private. There are things Grace asked me to tell you if we ever met." Jennifer and Grace exchanged glances. "More secrets from their great-aunt?" "Of course. Where would you like to talk?" "At my house? It's safer there. Grace always said the walls have ears in this town." They arranged to go to Mrs. Marlene's house after lunch. During the drive back to the property, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about what else they might discover about her family. "Do you think our great-aunt hid more things from us?" she asked Grace. Grace was always very careful. It's possible she left important information with different people to ensure it would reach us. "I'm starting to understand why she never tried to bring us together before. The situation is more complicated than we imagined. Grace always said timing was everything. Perhaps she knew that only now would we be ready to face the full truth." When they arrived home, they found Charles and Robert working on installing the sensor lights. They had also started cleaning and organizing the old caretaker's house, making it more livable. "On second thought, maybe it's best if you move into the smaller house for now," suggested Charles. "It's easier to protect and keep an eye on." "Good idea," agreed Grace. "The main house can wait for the major renovations." They spent the rest of the morning organizing the move to the caretaker's house. It was smaller, but cozier and in better condition. Tyler loved the idea of having his own room for the first time in his life. After lunch, Jennifer and Grace went to Mrs. Marlene's house, leaving Tyler playing with Charles and David, who had promised to teach the boys some basic construction techniques. Mrs. Marlene's house was in the oldest part of town, with well-preserved colonial architecture. It was surrounded by a well-kept garden full of colorful flowers. Come in," she said, welcoming them with fresh coffee and homemade cookies. "Margaret always said that when you two met, it would be a day of celebration." The living room was decorated with old photographs and family mementos. Mrs. Marlene settled them into comfortable armchairs before beginning to talk. "Margaret told me your family's whole story from the beginning," she said, addressing Jennifer in particular. "She wanted someone else to know the full truth, in case anything happened to her." "What more was there to know beyond what we found in the letters?" Mrs. Marlene sighed deeply. "Your mother's institutionalization wasn't the first time the Thompson family used those methods, to silence inconvenient people. Grace leaned forward, interested. How so? A long time ago, the Thompson family was involved in questionable business. They've always been a powerful family in the region, but not always in an honest way. Did Margaret know this when I married Robert? Asked Grace. She did, yes. But she couldn't interfere directly because she didn't have concrete evidence. It was all based on rumors and suspicions. When you found those documents, Mrs. Marlene continued, Margaret saw an opportunity to finally expose the truth. But they acted faster. The forced institutionalization wasn't improvised. It was planned from the moment you threatened to go to the authorities. Jennifer felt a chill thinking about the level of manipulation involved. But how did they convince the doctors my mother was ill? They bribed some, intimidated others. The Thompson family had contacts in the medical and legal fields. It wasn't hard for them to set up a false diagnosis. What else did Margaret tell you? Mrs. Marlene stood up and went to an old bookshelf. She retrieved a small carved wooden box. She left this for me to give to you when you met. Inside the box was a key different from the others and a piece of paper with an address in Philadelphia. What is this address? Asked Jennifer. It's a safe deposit box that Margaret rented at a bank in Philadelphia. There are documents stored there that are even more important than the ones you found in the secret room. Grace took the key, examining it carefully. What kind of documents? Evidence of more crimes by the Thompson family, not just embezzlement of public funds, but also document forgery, bribery of officials, and even evidence about your forced institutionalization. Margaret managed to gather all that. For years she investigated in silence. She had contacts in several cities, people who helped her collect information. It was the work of decades. Jennifer was impressed by her great-aunt's dedication. Why did she keep the most important evidence in Philadelphia and not in the secret room? Because she knew if the Thompson family discovered the secret room, they would tear everything apart. But the safe deposit box in Philadelphia is under a false identity she created. They would never be able to find it. Mrs. Marlene poured more coffee and continued sharing details of Margaret's investigation. Your great-aunt wasn't just a good person trying to protect the family. She was a natural investigator. She knew how to ask the right questions to the right people. She discovered, for example, that the Thompson family had forced other psychiatric hospitalizations over the years, people who had uncovered their secrets or had compromising information. Grace turned pale. Other people went through what I went through? At least two that Margaret managed to confirm. A woman who worked in the accounting department of their main company, and a man who was a partner in one of their fraudulent businesses. What happened to those people? The woman is still hospitalized. The man passed away at the clinic a few years ago, according to official records, due to heart problems. Jennifer felt nauseous. The Thompson family wasn't just greedy and dishonest. They were dangerous in a way she hadn't imagined. We have to expose all of this, she said. That's exactly what Margaret hoped you would do, replied Mrs. Marlene. But she also wanted you to know about the risks involved. What risks? The Thompson family has a lot of power and many resources. When they realize you have enough evidence to destroy them, they might try desperate measures. Like what they did to me, murmured Grace. Or worse. Margaret always feared that if the situation became extreme, they might attempt physical elimination. The silence that followed was heavy. Jennifer looked at Grace, seeing in her eyes the same fear she felt. So what should we do? Mrs. Marlene leaned forward. Margaret left a plan. First, you need to gather all the evidence. Then, expose everything at once, publicly, in a way that makes it impossible for them to hide or deny it. How? She suggested contacting investigative journalists, people who have an interest in exposing corruption and who have professional protection. What about our safety during this process? That's why it's important for you to have support from the local community. The Thompson family can intimidate isolated individuals, but they can't take on an entire town. Mrs. Marlene gave detailed instructions on how to access the safe deposit box in Philadelphia and suggested some names of journalists that Margaret had researched. Remember, when you decide to act, there can be no hesitation. It has to be quick and complete. You can't give them time to react. When they returned home in the late afternoon, Jennifer and Grace were overwhelmed with information. The scope of what they were uncovering about the Thompson family grew each day, and with it grew the sense of danger. "We're facing something much bigger than we imagined," said Grace. "But now we have resources and support we didn't have before," replied Jennifer, "and most importantly, we have concrete evidence. Are you sure you want to go through with this? We could still take the money, go far away, and try to start over somewhere else." Jennifer thought for a few moments. It would be safer to run and try to forget everything. But that would mean abandoning her great-aunt's legacy, letting the Thompson family's crimes go unpunished, and allowing other people to continue suffering as her mother had suffered. "I can't run away," she decided. "Great-aunt spent decades of her life gathering evidence so we could get justice. I won't waste that sacrifice. What if something happens to us? What about Tyler? That's why we need to be smart. We'll follow Great-aunt's plan and make sure we have proper protection." That night they discussed strategies with Charles and David, who were even more willing to help after learning more details about the situation. "We know more people who can help," said Charles. "There are a lot of people in the region who have been harmed by the Thompson family over the years." "How so?" "They bought land from small farmers at very low prices using threats. They obtained fraudulent public contracts that harmed honest businesses. They've always been a plague on anyone trying to work cleanly." David nodded. "If the community finds out they finally have a chance to see that family exposed, many people will want to help." "But that also means more people at risk," observed Grace. "Or it means we become stronger together," countered Jennifer. "They can intimidate individuals, but they can't intimidate an entire community." The next morning, Jennifer and Grace decided to make another trip to Philadelphia to access the great-aunt's safe deposit box. This time they took Tyler along, as they didn't want to leave him even with protection. The trip was uneventful, but Jennifer stayed alert to the traffic, always checking if they were being followed. They arrived at the bank in the early afternoon, and after some bureaucratic procedures gained access to the box. What they found there exceeded all expectations. There were hundreds of meticulously organized documents, photographs, audio recordings on cassette tapes, and even personal correspondence between members of the Thompson family discussing their schemes. "My God," murmured Grace, flipping through a folder full of fraudulent contracts. "This is evidence of crimes spanning decades." Jennifer found an envelope marked "For Jennifer," open only if all else fails. Inside was a letter from her great-aunt explaining a final emergency strategy. "Dear Jennifer, if you are reading this letter, it means the situation has become extreme. In this box there is enough evidence to completely destroy the Thompson family, but there are also dangers involved in using this evidence. If they have reached the point of directly threatening you or Tyler, there is a drastic solution I have prepared. In the folder marked Final Solution are copies of all documents organized for simultaneous delivery to multiple authorities: Federal Police, Public Prosecutor's Office, Federal Revenue Service, and 3 major newspapers. There is also a recorded confession from Sebastian Thompson, Robert's older brother and Harold's father. I obtained this recording 5 years ago when he was hospitalized and medicated, thinking he was speaking to a priest. In the recording, he confesses to the entire corruption scheme and admits to ordering his forced institutionalization. Use this evidence only if there is no other way out. Once released, there is no turning back. The Thompson family will be destroyed, but you will also forever be marked as the people who brought them down. Choose wisely. With eternal love, Margaret. Jennifer showed the letter to Grace, who was impressed with the level of her great-aunt's planning. "She really thought of everything," said Grace. "Should we take all this evidence with us?" "It's risky. If they discover we removed everything from the box, they might try to steal it from us." "Then what do we do?" "We'll make copies of the essentials and leave the originals here, but we'll transfer the box to an even larger bank with more security." They spent the rest of the afternoon organizing and copying documents. Jennifer was impressed by her great-aunt's meticulousness. Every piece of evidence was dated, catalogued, and accompanied by detailed explanations. There was also information about the woman who was still unjustly institutionalized in the psychiatric clinic. Jennifer felt she had a responsibility to help her too. By the end of the day, they had organized everything, and transferred the box to a bank with a higher security structure in downtown Philadelphia. During the trip back, Jennifer made a decision. Tomorrow we will seek out that lawyer, Dr. Elizabeth Anderson, and show her all this evidence. It's time to start the official legal process. Are you sure? I am. We've waited long enough. With each passing day, more people could be suffering because of the Thompson family. Grace agreed, but Jennifer could see the worry in her eyes. When they arrived back at the property, they found unusual activity. There were more cars parked than usual, and the voices of several people talking. Charles came running to meet them as soon as they parked. "Good thing you're back. Some important things happened today." "What kind of things?" "First, Harold came back here looking for you, but this time he brought a lawyer and some people he said were from the mayor's office." Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. "What did they want?" "They were talking about a property embargo, saying the house doesn't have an occupancy permit and that you're living here illegally." "And you let them in?" "No. I said you weren't here and that they needed to come back another day, but they kept taking pictures of the property from the outside." David joined the conversation. "The second thing is that more people showed up wanting to help. Father Michael spread the news in the community about your situation." Jennifer looked around and saw at least 10 people she didn't know talking with Manuel and Joseph Charles. "Who are these people?" "People who were harmed by the Thompson family over the years," explained David. "When they heard someone was finally standing up to them, they wanted to offer help." Father Michael approached the group. "Jennifer, these people have important stories to tell, stories that can help you with the legal process." A woman of about 50 stepped forward. "My name is Rose Parker. I'm not related to them, it's just a coincidence of the last name. My family lost our farm 15 years ago because of irregularities they created in the paperwork." An elderly man also introduced himself. "I'm Anthony Cooper. I worked at the mayor's office for 30 years. I know about many fraudulent contracts the Thompson family secured using bribery and intimidation." One by one, Jennifer heard stories from people who had been harmed by the Thompson family. They were small farmers who lost land, business owners who were ruined by unfair competition, public employees who were fired for refusing to participate in corruption schemes. "We never had the courage to report them alone," explained Rose, "but if you are willing to face them, we will support you." Grace was moved to realize it wasn't just them against the Thompson family. There was an entire community of people who had suffered and wanted justice. "Thank you," she said. "It means a lot to us to know we are not alone." Father Michael suggested they organize a formal meeting to coordinate efforts. "Tomorrow night, in the parish hall. Each person can bring the evidence they have, and we'll organize everything systematically." Jennifer agreed, but also warned about the risks. "You need to understand that the Thompson family may react violently when they realize they're being exposed by so many people." "We know," said Anthony, "but we also know that united we are stronger than them." That night, Jennifer had trouble sleeping. The day had brought important developments, but also increased tensions. The threat of a property embargo was a new tactic from the Thompson family, and the community mobilization, although positive, also meant more people were entering the line of fire. The next morning, she woke up determined to speed up the legal process before Harold and his lawyers could create more bureaucratic complications. Jennifer called Dr. Elizabeth Anderson and scheduled an urgent meeting for that same day. She explained she had important new evidence and that the situation was intensifying rapidly. "Bring everything you have," said the lawyer. "I'll cancel my other appointments to give your case my full attention." Before traveling to Philadelphia, Jennifer spoke with the volunteers protecting the property. "We need to prepare for the possibility of them trying to force entry today or tomorrow," she said, "especially with this injunction story." Manuel suggested a strategy. "I'll bring a few more trusted men, and we'll install a chain at the property entrance with a padlock. If they want to enter, they'll have to break the chain in front of witnesses." "Good idea. Any illegal action on their part will be documented." Joseph Charles offered to film any attempted break-in with his personal camera. "If they do anything irregular, we'll have video proof." Jennifer, Grace, and Tyler left for Philadelphia with a folder full of copied documents and the recording of Sebastian Thompson they had found in their great-aunt's safe. The meeting with Dr. Elizabeth Anderson was more productive than expected. The lawyer was impressed by the quantity and quality of the evidence. "This is enough material for dozens of criminal cases," she said, examining the documents. "Corruption, fraud, document forgery, forced institutionalization, bribery. What can we do immediately to protect ourselves? I'll file a preliminary injunction to ensure you are not removed from the property while the cases are underway. I'll also request police protection. And what about the crimes we discovered? I'll prepare formal complaints for the district attorney's office. With this evidence, they will be compelled to open an investigation." The lawyer explained that the process would be long and complex, but the evidence was solid enough to secure convictions. "The important thing now is to ensure your safety during the transition period. Until the investigations begin officially, the Thompson family will try to prevent the evidence from reaching the authorities." Dr. Anderson offered to personally deliver the complaints to the district attorney's office and to coordinate contacts with the press, should public pressure become necessary. "I'd like you to stay in Philadelphia for a few days, until I secure the first protective injunctions." "We can't abandon the property now," said Jennifer. "There are people from the community helping us there. It wouldn't be fair to them." "I understand, then I'll expedite all procedures as much as possible." They returned to St. Mary Valley in the late afternoon, feeling safer with professional legal support, but also aware that the coming days would be critical. The meeting in the parish hall happened as planned. Over 20 people attended, each bringing accounts and evidence of problems with the Thompson family. Jennifer was impressed by the number of irregularities exposed during the meeting: forged documents, fraudulent contracts, threats, intimidation, bribes. The Thompson family had left a trail of victims over decades. Father Michael coordinated the organization of the evidence and testimonies. Anthony Cooper, with his experience at the City Hall, helped categorize the different types of crimes. "With all this organized, we'll have a very strong case," he said. Rose Parker suggested they also send copies of everything to journalists. If the official investigation drags on or is sabotaged, at least the press can expose the truth. During the meeting, Jennifer received a call from Charles informing her that Harold had appeared at the property again, this time accompanied by a process server. "They're trying to deliver an injunction notice," said Charles, "but since you're not here, the officer can't formally deliver it. Don't let them enter the property. Tell them I'll be there tomorrow morning to receive any official documentation." "Okay." But they don't seem satisfied. They're talking quietly among themselves and giving me the impression that they're planning something. Jennifer ended the meeting early and quickly returned to the property with Grace and Tyler. When they arrived, they found at least 15 men from the community taking shifts keeping watch around the property. "The situation is heating up," explained Manuel. "After Harold left, 2 cars with men showed up and watched from a distance. Where are they now? They left when they realized there were a lot of people around here. But the feeling is they'll try something during the night." Joseph Charles showed Jennifer some footage he had taken during the day. "I managed to film Harold talking with the court officer. You can hear part of the conversation. He was offering the officer money to invent some irregularity that would justify forced entry onto the property. Did the officer accept? From what I could tell, no. He seemed like an honest person, said he can only act within the law." Jennifer felt a little relieved, but she knew Harold wouldn't give up easily. "Let's reinforce security tonight. If they try anything, we want to be prepared." Grace suggested that Tyler sleep at Mrs. Beatrice's house in Clear Springs to ensure his safety. "It's better for him to be away if the situation gets tense," she said. "Good idea. I'll call Mrs. Beatrice." Mrs. Beatrice readily agreed to look after Tyler for a few days. Jennifer explained the situation and asked her not to tell anyone about the boy being at her house. After leaving Tyler safely, Jennifer and Grace returned to face what could be a difficult night at the property. The men from the community organized into groups to keep watch throughout the night. Some were posted at the property entrance, others at the boundaries of the land, and some inside the caretaker's house. Around 2 in the morning, the vigilance paid off. David, who was on duty at the entrance, spotted 3 cars approaching with their headlights off. He discreetly alerted the other watchers through a communication system they had improvised with borrowed walkie-talkies. The cars stopped about 200 meters from the property entrance. Several people got out, but it was hard to see how many in the darkness. Jennifer and Grace were awake in the caretaker's house, waiting for news. When Charles came to report about the cars, they felt their hearts race. "How many people are there?" asked Jennifer. "From what David could see, at least 8, and they have flashlights and tools." "Tools for what?" "Probably to break the chain at the entrance or to force their way into the main house." Grace held Jennifer's hand. "Maybe we should have run away when we still had time." "No. If we ran now, they win, and other people would continue to suffer." Joseph Charles appeared at the door with his camera. "I'll try to film everything I can without being seen. If they do anything illegal, we'll have proof." For 20 tense minutes, the intruder group watched the property from a distance. They clearly realized there was surveillance and were trying to decide if it was worth risking a confrontation. Finally, they got back in their cars and left. But the message was clear. They wouldn't give up easily. "Tomorrow they'll try a different approach," said Manuel. "More legal with official authorities." "Then we'd better be prepared legally," replied Jennifer. The next morning, Jennifer called Dr. Elizabeth to inform her about the events of the previous night. "Did you get the protective orders?" "I got an order preventing your removal from the property without a full judicial process. I'm emailing you a copy to print." "And the criminal complaints?" "I filed everything yesterday afternoon. The district attorney's office should begin the investigation in the coming days." "Dr. Elizabeth, they tried to break into the property overnight. I believe they will intensify their illegal actions. I will request an emergency protective order and report the attempted break-in to the authorities. Do you have evidence of what happened?" "We have footage of part of the events." "Perfect. Send that footage to me immediately." During the morning, Jennifer and the community volunteers better organized the documentation of all the evidence. They created backup copies of everything and distributed them to several trusted people. "If something happens to any of us, the evidence won't be lost," explained Anthony. Around noon, an official city car arrived at the property. This time, Harold was accompanied by the mayor himself and 2 municipal employees. Jennifer met them at the property entrance but did not allow them inside. "How can I help you?" The mayor, a man of about 60 with a prominent belly and a political manner, tried to be cordial. "Miss Jennifer, I am Mayor Oswald Peterson. We are here to resolve a delicate situation regarding the occupation of this property." "There is no irregular occupation. I am the legitimate owner through testamentary inheritance." "Yes, we know that. But some irregularities have been identified in the property documentation that need to be resolved before it can be inhabited." Harold took a step forward. "As I explained before, there are pending issues that make the occupation illegal at the moment." Jennifer took the court order from her bag, which Dr. Elizabeth had emailed, and she had printed in town that morning. "This court order prevents any removal or interdiction of this property without a full legal process," she said, handing a copy to the mayor. Oswald read the document with a worried expression. "Well, this complicates things. I will have to consult the city's legal department." "You may consult at your leisure. In the meantime, we continue to reside legally on our property." Harold was clearly frustrated by the legal development. Jennifer could see he had promised the mayor it would be easy to remove her from the property. "Mayor, perhaps you should know that we have evidence of irregularities in several city contracts with companies owned by the Thompson family," said Jennifer, deciding to use some of her ammunition. Oswald's expression changed drastically. He looked nervously at Harold and then back at Jennifer. "What kind of evidence?" "Documents showing overbilling, rigged bids, payments for services not rendered, decades of irregularities." "Those are very serious accusations, ma'am." "They are very serious pieces of evidence. They have already been submitted to the district attorney's office." The mayor turned pale. If there was documented evidence of irregularities in contracts with Thompson family companies, his own administration was compromised. "I need to go," he said hastily. "I will look into this entire situation and return with an official position." Harold tried to protest, but Oswald was already walking toward the official car. "Mayor, we agreed on nothing that legally compromises me," interrupted Oswald. "Resolve your family problems without involving the municipal administration." After they left, Jennifer felt victorious for the first time since the situation had begun. Seeing Harold publicly rejected by the mayor was satisfying. Charles, who had witnessed the entire conversation, was smiling. I think the penny is dropping for everyone. No one wants to be associated with the Thompson family when there is evidence of crimes. Exactly, agreed Jennifer. Their power was always based on intimidation and political protection. Without that, they're just common criminals. That afternoon, Jennifer received a call from Dr. Elizabeth Anderson with important news. The public prosecutor's office has accelerated the investigation. They will open an official inquiry this very week. Is that good? Very good. It means the evidence has been considered consistent and serious. From now on, any attempt by the Thompson family to intimidate you will be considered obstruction of justice. And our safety. I've secured authorization for temporary police protection. A patrol car will regularly monitor the area over the next few days. Jennifer shared the news with Grace and the community volunteers. Everyone felt relieved to know the situation was being normalized through legal channels. Father Michael suggested a Thanksgiving Mass on Sunday to celebrate the progress and to thank the community for all its help. It will also be a way to publicly show that you have the support of the whole town, he said. Jennifer agreed. After so many days of tension and fear, it would be good to have a moment of celebration and unity. On Saturday, she went to pick up Tyler from Mrs. Beatrice's house. The boy was eager to return and tell all about the adventures he'd had during the days in Clear Springs. Mrs. Beatrice taught me how to make bread, Mom. And she told me stories about Grandma when she was young. What kind of stories? She said Grandma was always very brave and never gave up on helping the people she loved. Jennifer looked at Grace, who was moved to hear her grandson's words. Mrs. Beatrice is right, said Grace, and you two are also very brave. Now we're a real family, right? Asked Tyler. We are a real family, confirmed Jennifer, hugging her son and her mother. Sunday's Mass was moving. The church was packed with people Jennifer recognized and many others she didn't know, but who apparently knew her story. During the homily, Father Michael spoke about courage, justice, and the importance of a community united against oppression. Sometimes one courageous person is all it takes to inspire an entire community to fight for what is right, he said, glancing discreetly at Jennifer. After the Mass, dozens of people approached to greet Jennifer, Grace, and Tyler. Many offered continued help and expressed gratitude that someone had finally stood up to the Thompson family. You did something we've wanted to do for years, said an elderly lady. Thank you for having courage. During the following week, the situation developed rapidly. The public prosecutor's office officially opened an investigation into several members of the Thompson family. The news was published in the local newspaper, causing a major stir. Harold was called to testify, and, according to information that reached Jennifer through Dr. Elizabeth Anderson, he was clearly nervous and trying to hire the best criminal defense lawyers in the region. The investigation is progressing well, the attorney informed during a phone call. The prosecutors are impressed with the quality of the evidence you provided. And our safety? For now, the Thompson family seems focused on their legal defense. There have been no further attempts at direct intimidation. Jennifer finally felt safe enough to start planning the property renovations. With Manuel and his sons, she drew up a plan to make both the main house and the caretaker's house into livable, cozy spaces. It's going to look beautiful when it's done, said Charles, examining the drawings they had made. And will you keep living here after everything is settled? Asked David. Jennifer looked at Grace. I think so. Here we found family and community. I don't want to go back to Los Angeles anymore. And I never want to feel alone in the world again, added Grace. Here we have roots. Tyler, who had been playing nearby, ran over to join the conversation. And I like it here. There's space to play and everyone is nice to me. A month later, Jennifer received a call from Dr. Elizabeth Anderson with news that would definitively mark the end of the nightmare that had begun with the great-aunt's inheritance. Jennifer, I need to give you an important update on the investigation. What happened? Harold Thompson and 3 other family members have been formally charged with multiple crimes: corruption, fraud, document forgery, forced institutionalization, and obstruction of justice. Jennifer felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. And what does this mean for us? It means you are completely safe. With the formal charges, any attempt at intimidation would be considered an additional crime. Furthermore, the court has ordered the psychiatric clinic to be investigated, and there is an immediate release order for the woman who was still unjustly committed. Will she be released? She has already been released, and there is a possibility she will receive substantial compensation for the years of illegal confinement. Jennifer shared the news with Grace, and they both cried with relief and happiness. After months of fear and uncertainty, they could finally begin to build a normal life. Great Aunt Margaret would be proud, said Grace. She dedicated her life so that this day would come. And she succeeded. Through the evidence she gathered, justice was served for many people. That evening, they organized a small celebration on the property with all the community friends who had helped during the difficult times. Manuel brought homemade wine, Father Michael blessed the house, Joseph Charles brought his accordion to liven up the party, and dozens of people came to celebrate the victory of justice over corruption. "You know you will always have a family here," said Rose Parker during a toast. "No matter what happens, this community will always protect you." During the party, Tyler asked Jennifer, "Mom, now that the bad men won't bother us anymore, are we going to be happy forever?" Jennifer looked around, seeing her mother talking animatedly with Mrs. Beatrice, seeing the friends who had risked their own safety to protect her family, seeing the property that was being transformed into a true home. "I think so, my love. I think we are finally going to be happy forever." Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now, continuing. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The property had been fully renovated and had become a cozy place where Jennifer, Grace, and Tyler lived in harmony. The main house was converted into a welcoming home with comfortable bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and a spacious living room where the family gathered every evening. The old caretaker's house was turned into a small studio where Grace discovered her talent for crafts. She began making woodwork and fabric pieces that she sold in town, finally having her own source of income that made her feel independent and productive. Tyler adapted completely to country life. He made friends at the local school, learned to swim in the creek that ran behind the property, and developed a passion for gardening, tending a small vegetable garden he planted with his grandmother's help. The Thompson family faced the legal consequences of decades of crimes. Harold was sentenced to 8 years in prison for corruption and fraud. Other family members received lighter sentences, but all had their assets confiscated to pay compensation to the victims. The woman who had been illegally held in the psychiatric clinic, Mary Jane Oliver, received compensation of $500,000 and psychological support to readjust to life in society. Jennifer and Grace became her friends, offering emotional support during her recovery. The psychiatric clinic where Grace had been kept for so many years was closed, and its directors prosecuted for complicity in the Thompson family's crimes. An investigation revealed that several other people had been unjustly held there over the years. The scandal had regional repercussions. Newspapers from Philadelphia and even Los Angeles published stories about the case, turning Jennifer and Grace into symbols of courage and perseverance. But they preferred to maintain a simple and discreet life in the community that had welcomed them. Jennifer got a job as a secretary at the local school, work that gave her satisfaction and allowed her to closely follow her son's education. Grace found peace taking care of the house, the garden, and developing her handicrafts. For the first time in decades, she felt truly free and happy. The property became a gathering point for the community. On Sundays after Mass, many families would stop by to chat, have coffee, and enjoy the tranquility of the place. Mrs. Marlene, the friend of Great Aunt Margaret, visited regularly and always brought stories about the families and regions past. She became a sort of adoptive grandmother for Tyler, teaching him about local history and telling old legends. Father Michael celebrated the first anniversary of Jennifer and Grace's arrival in town with a special Thanksgiving Mass. During the homily, he spoke about how sometimes God uses simple people to bring about great changes. The courage of a young mother and the perseverance of a wronged grandmother changed our entire community, he said. They reminded us that justice is worth fighting for. During the celebration after Mass, several people gave emotional speeches about how Jennifer and Grace's struggle had inspired positive changes in the town. Mayor Oswald, who had distanced himself from the Thompson family after the scandal, implemented new transparency policies in the municipal administration. All contracts began to be publicly disclosed, and a citizens' committee was created to oversee public spending. "You taught us that it is possible to fight corruption and win," he said during his speech. "Our town is more honest because of your courage." Anthony Cooper, the former town hall employee, was invited to coordinate the new Transparency Committee. His experience and knowledge of administrative procedures became valuable for maintaining honesty in public management. Rose Parker, who had lost her farm to the Thompson family, managed to recover part of her land through legal proceedings based on the evidence Jennifer had provided. She returned to farming and became one of the main suppliers of vegetables and fruit for the town. The transformation was not just individual, but communal. The entire town felt empowered to demand honesty and transparency from its authorities. Corrupt candidates were rejected in the following elections, and a new generation of honest leaders began to emerge. Jennifer realized that the inheritance she had received from Great-Aunt Margaret was much more than a property. It was a mission to restore justice and reunite a family that had been separated by decades of lies and manipulation. One day, while organizing the old papers still left in the secret room, Jennifer found one last letter from Margaret that had gone unnoticed before. "Dear Jennifer, if you are reading this letter, it means you have managed to overcome all obstacles and reunite our family. It means that justice has prevailed over corruption and that love has conquered hatred. I hope you now understand why I had to wait so long to act. It was necessary for you to be strong enough to face the Thompson family and mature enough to make the right decisions. Your mother was always a courageous and principled woman. The years of institutionalization could not destroy her essence. I know that in living together, you will find the happiness that was denied to you for so long. Tyler will grow up in an environment of love, truth, and justice. He will never need to go through the traumas you endured. This property is not just a home. It is a symbol of resistance against oppression and of truth's victory over lies. Take care of it with affection, but know that its true value is not in the stones and the land, but in what it represents. Use this house to help others who may be going through similar situations. Transform it into a refuge for people who need support and protection. My mission on earth is complete. You are reunited, justice has been served, and a new generation can grow up in safety. Live with joy, love, and gratitude. You deserve all the happiness in the world. With eternal love and pride, Great-Aunt Margaret." Jennifer read the letter to Grace and Tyler. Everyone was moved by the great-aunt's final words. "She really thought of everything," said Grace. "Even what we should do after everything was resolved." "What did Great-Aunt mean by turning the house into a refuge for other people?" asked Tyler. Jennifer looked around the property, imagining the possibilities. "I think she wanted us to help other families going through problems like ours." "How so?" "Women who need to escape dangerous situations, children who need a temporary home, people who are fighting against injustices." Grace liked the idea immediately. "We have the space, we have experience overcoming difficulties, and we have a community that supports just causes." Jennifer spoke with Father Michael about the possibility of transforming part of the property into a support center for families in vulnerable situations. He was enthusiastic about the idea. "There are many women in the region suffering domestic violence who have nowhere to go," he said. "A safe place where they can stay with their children would be a blessing." "And children who need temporary care while their families resolve problems," added Grace. They began planning the gradual transformation of the property. The main house would remain the family home, but they would build small additional houses to temporarily shelter people who needed help. The idea gained immediate support from the community. Manuel offered to build the new houses without charging for labor. Joseph Charles offered all electrical services for free. Dozens of other people offered to donate materials, furniture, and time. "It will be a project for the whole community," said Rose Parker during a planning meeting. "Every family will contribute what they can." In less than a year, Margaret's refuge was operational. It consisted of 4 small 2-bedroom houses, a communal kitchen, a meeting room, and a children's play area. The first family to be welcomed was Anna Beatrice and her 2 children, who had fled a violent husband. She stayed at the refuge for 3 months, long enough to get a job in town and rent her own house. "You saved my life," she said on the day she left the refuge. "If it weren't for this place, I don't know what would have happened to my children." The refuge quickly gained a reputation in the region. Social workers from neighboring towns began referring families who needed temporary support. Jennifer coordinated the administrative activities, Grace took care of the emotional support for the women and children, and Tyler, now 10 years old, helped entertain the younger children who arrived at the refuge. "It's like our family grows with every person we help," Tyler remarked one day. "Exactly," agreed Jennifer. "Great-Aunt Margaret wanted us to turn our pain into help for others." Father Michael organized a network of volunteers offering different kinds of support: adult literacy classes, vocational training, free legal aid, psychological counseling. Dr. Elizabeth continued providing free legal services for the women at the refuge, helping them with divorces, child custody, and protective orders. 2 years after the refuge opened, Jennifer took stock of what they had achieved. More than 30 families had been helped, and most had managed to rebuild their lives with dignity. The property had become a symbol of hope for the entire region. People facing hardships knew there was a place where they could find not only shelter, but also emotional and practical support to start over. Jennifer often visited the secret room where it all began. She kept the space preserved as a memorial to her great-aunt, but now it was open for visits by all the people helped by the refuge. "This room represents the importance of never giving up on justice and love," she explained to each new group of visitors. "My great-aunt spent decades gathering evidence and planning our reunion. Her perseverance saved not only our family, but many other families too." The walls of the room were decorated with photographs and thank-you letters from all the people who had been helped by the refuge. It was moving to see how a story of suffering had transformed into a source of hope for so many. Grace found complete fulfillment in her role as a caregiver at the refuge. Her own experience of suffering and overcoming made her especially skilled at understanding and supporting other women in difficult situations. "Every woman I help rebuild her life helps me heal my own wounds," she confessed to Jennifer one day. "It's like I'm saving the person I was years ago." Tyler grew up in an environment of solidarity and compassion. By 12, he was known at school for his kindness toward classmates facing difficulties and for his maturity in handling problems. "My son grew up seeing that it's possible to turn suffering into help for others," Jennifer observed. "That made him an empathetic and generous person." One Sunday during the weekly Mass, Father Michael made a special announcement. 3 years ago, our community welcomed a family going through great hardship. Today, that family has not only overcome their problems, but has transformed their experiences into blessings for dozens of other families. Margaret's Refuge has become an example for other towns in the region. Several communities are creating similar projects, inspired by the work that Jennifer, Grace, and our whole community have developed. This shows us that when we unite for a just cause, we can create change that goes far beyond our own reality. After Mass, the community gathered at the property for a communal lunch, a tradition established for every first Sunday of the month. Mrs. Marlene, now over 70 but still active and present, made a special toast. "Margaret once told me she had planted seeds that would only sprout after she was gone," she said, raising her glass of grape juice. "Today we see she was right. The seeds have sprouted and become a leafy tree that shelters many people." Jennifer looked around, seeing children playing in the yard, women talking about their life projects, men from the community discussing improvements for the refuge, and her own family harmoniously integrated into it all. "3 years ago, I thought I was losing everything," she said during her own thank-you speech. "I was being evicted, had no prospects, felt completely alone in the world. Today I realize I wasn't losing anything. I was being guided to find my true family, my true purpose, and my true home. Great-Aunt Margaret didn't just leave me a property, she left me a life mission to transform pain into healing, suffering into solidarity, and difficult experiences into tools to help other people. Grace approached Jennifer and held her hand. "And she gave me back the daughter I thought I had lost forever, plus a wonderful grandson and an extended family I never imagined having." Tyler, now a smart and affectionate preteen, hugged both women. "And I gained a grandmother, a beautiful home, a community that loves me, and the certainty that our family will never be separated again." During the celebration, Jennifer received an unexpected call. It was a journalist from a national magazine who wanted to do a story on Margaret's Refuge and its story of social transformation. "We learned about your project through social workers in the region," explained the journalist. "We want to show how a family that overcame adversity can inspire positive change in an entire community." Jennifer accepted the interview, but insisted on emphasizing that the project's success was the result of the work of the whole community, not just her family. The article was published 2 months later and had a major impact. Margaret's Refuge received donations from across the country, allowing for the expansion of services and improvement of infrastructure. More importantly, dozens of communities in different states made contact seeking guidance to create similar projects. Jennifer and Grace began to travel occasionally to give talks on women's empowerment, overcoming trauma, and developing community social projects. "I never imagined our personal story could inspire so many people," said Grace after a talk in Los Angeles. "Great-Aunt Margaret always said that every story of overcoming has the power to inspire many others," replied Jennifer. "I think she was right." 5 years after the opening of Margaret's Refuge, Jennifer reflected on everything that had happened since she received that unexpected call from the lawyer about an inheritance. The inherited property had become much more than a house. It was now a social support complex that served not only women and children in vulnerable situations, but also offered professional training programs, adult literacy, and support for small entrepreneurs. The Thompson family's story served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of corruption and abuse of power. Several of the documents discovered by Margaret were used in textbooks on ethics and citizenship in schools in the region. Harold Thompson, after serving his sentence, tried to approach Jennifer to ask for forgiveness and attempt a family reconciliation. She met with him, but made it clear that forgiveness did not mean forgetting or accepting his past actions. "You can rebuild your life, but you will have to live with the consequences of your choices," she said during the meeting. "I chose to transform our pain into something positive. It's up to you to decide how you want to use your future." Harold moved to another region, and according to information that reached Jennifer, was trying to rebuild his life working simple jobs and staying away from illegal activities. The psychiatric clinic where Grace was unjustly held was transformed into a mental health center that offered humane and respectful treatment for people with real psychological problems. Mary Jane Oliver, the woman who was freed thanks to the evidence found by Jennifer, became an activist for psychiatric patients' rights and helped the refuge by offering specialized support for people with psychological trauma. The community of St. Mary Valley became a regional reference in social projects and administrative transparency. The St. Mary Valley model was studied in universities as an example of how a community can organize itself to combat corruption and promote social justice. Tyler, now 15 years old, was a young man engaged in social causes and already talked about pursuing a career in social work or human rights. "I want to continue the work you started," he said during a family conversation. "I want to help people the way Great-Aunt Margaret helped our family." Jennifer was proud to see how her son had grown up with solid values of justice, solidarity, and compassion. "He learned from a young age that it's possible to make a difference in other people's lives," observed Grace. "That is the best gift we could give him." During one of the regular visits to Margaret's grave, Jennifer mentally conversed with her great-aunt about all the developments. "Aunt, today the refuge helped a family that fled political persecution from another state. Tomorrow, a pregnant young woman arrives who was thrown out of her home by her family. Next week, we will inaugurate the new sewing workshop that will generate income for the women we serve. Tyler is growing up strong and generous. Grace found her calling in caring for others, and I finally understood what my purpose in life was. Thank you for planting the seeds that became this lush tree, Thank you for believing that we were capable of turning suffering into healing. Grace joined Jennifer at the cemetery, as they did together every month. Sometimes I talk to her too, confessed Grace. I thank her for giving me the strength to survive all those years in the clinic, keeping alive the hope of finding you again. She must be proud to see how our family rebuilt itself, and to see how our pain turned into help for so many other families. That late afternoon, as they walked home along the dirt road connecting the cemetery to the property, Jennifer reflected on the extraordinary journey her life had taken. 5 years earlier, she was a desperate single mother, about to be evicted with no prospects or family. Today, she was the coordinator of a nationally recognized social project, had a loving and united family, and a community that respected and supported her. Sometimes it feels like a dream, she said to Grace. It's not a dream. It's the result of not giving up when everything seemed impossible, and of having the courage to confront powerful people when the easiest thing would have been to run away. When they arrived home, they found Tyler helping a new family that had arrived at the refuge that day. He was teaching an 8-year-old child to ride a bike, while the child's mother talked with one of the volunteers about job opportunities in the region. This is my family, thought Jennifer, watching the scene. Not just Grace and Tyler, but this entire network of people helping each other. That night, during the family dinner, they talked about plans for the refuge's future. The City Hall has offered an additional plot of land to expand the project, Jennifer shared. We could build a larger vocational training center. Good idea, said Grace. Many of the women we serve have the potential to become entrepreneurs, but they need training. And we could have courses for the men too, suggested Tyler. There are many fathers who want to get closer to their children but don't know how. Jennifer smiled to see how her son thought of inclusive solutions to social problems. Let's talk with the whole community before making any decision, she said. This project only works because it's built collectively. Later, when Tyler was studying and Grace was embroidering in the living room, Jennifer went up to the room that had belonged to Great-Aunt Margaret and which she kept preserved as a personal office. There were photographs of all the families that had passed through the refuge, thank you letters, project recognition certificates, and the desk where Margaret had spent decades planning the family reunion and the fight against injustice. Jennifer opened a notebook where she regularly wrote her reflections on the journey they had lived. It was a way to process the emotions and to document the history for future generations. Today marks 5 years since the beginning of this extraordinary journey. 5 years since I received that unexpected call about an inheritance that would completely change our lives. If someone had told me back then that I would be coordinating a social project, that my mother would be alive and would be my life companion, and that my son would grow up in a loving and supportive community, I would have thought that person was dreaming. But I've learned that life sometimes takes us down unexpected paths that seem difficult at the moment, but are actually opportunities for growth and transformation. I've learned that family isn't just those who share our blood, but those who share our values and our journey. I've learned that suffering can be transformed into wisdom, and that difficult experiences can become tools to help other people. I've learned that one courageous person can inspire an entire community to fight for justice. And most of all, I've learned that love and persistence can overcome any obstacle, no matter how big it may seem. Great-Aunt Margaret planted seeds of justice and love that sprouted far beyond what she could have imagined. Today, our project inspires dozens of other communities across the country. Our personal story has become a tool for social transformation. Our pain has become a source of healing for other families. Grace regained not only her freedom, but also her dignity and her purpose in life. Tyler is growing up with solid values of compassion and social justice. And I discovered that my mission in life is to help other people discover their own strength to overcome adversity. Tomorrow, 2 new families arrive at the refuge. A mother with 3 children fleeing domestic violence and a grandmother who is raising 2 granddaughters alone because her daughter is hospitalized for chemical dependency treatment. Each new family that arrives brings its own pains and challenges, but it also brings the opportunity to demonstrate that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to overcome any situation, no matter how difficult it may seem. Our house, which was once a symbol of abandonment and secrets, is now a symbol of welcome and hope. The secret room where it all began is now visited by hundreds of people who come to learn our story and find inspiration for their own struggles. The property I inherited, thinking it was just an old and worthless house, turned out to be the portal to a completely new life, to a reunited family, and to a purpose greater than anything I could have imagined. Margaret left much more than a material inheritance. She left a legacy of courage, perseverance, and unconditional love that will continue to inspire future generations. And we will continue honoring that legacy, helping every person who knocks on our door, showing that it's possible to transform any difficult situation into an opportunity for growth and service to others. This is our story. This is our mission. This is our way of thanking life for the second chance it gave us. Thank you, Great-Aunt Margaret. Your mission was accomplished with far more success than you could have dreamed. Jennifer closed the notebook and looked out the bedroom window, seeing the property illuminated by the lights from the houses of the refuge. In every lit window, there was a family rebuilding their lives, finding hope where once there was only despair. It was a sight that filled her with gratitude and purpose. She knew that the next day would bring new challenges, new families arriving with their pain and fears. But she also knew that her family and her community would be ready to offer the necessary support so each person could discover their own strength to overcome. Before sleeping, Jennifer stopped by Tyler's room to say goodnight. She found him reading a book about human rights. "Studying for a test?" she asked. "No, Mom. Just trying to understand better how I can help people when I grow up." Jennifer kissed her son's forehead, feeling proud of the generous and aware person he was becoming. "You already help so much, my love. Just by being who you are, you make our family and our community better. Mum, do you think Great-Aunt Margaret would be proud of what we've managed to do?" Jennifer looked at the boy, seeing in him the continuation of the values Margaret had planted in their family. "I am absolutely certain she is very proud, not only of what we've managed to do, but especially of the loving family we've become." In the next room, Grace was finishing an embroidery that would be sold at the town fair over the weekend. Her hands, which once trembled with fear and forced medication, now created beauty and generated income to help support the family and the refuge. "How are you feeling?" asked Jennifer, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Complete," Grace answered without hesitation. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete. I have my daughter, my grandson, a purpose, a community that loves me. I couldn't ask for more." "And you don't miss big city life? You don't regret that we stayed here?" "Never. Here we found our true home. It's not a place defined by geography, but by love and purpose." In the early hours of the morning, Jennifer woke to the sound of rain hitting the roof. It was a sound that once frightened her in the old, dilapidated house, but now soothed her in the renovated, cozy home. She got up and walked to the window, watching the rainwater filling the cisterns they had built to irrigate the refuge's gardens. Every drop represented new life, growth, renewal. It was a perfect metaphor for her own journey. The tears of suffering from the past had transformed into a source of life for many others. As she watched the rain, Jennifer made a silent promise to herself, to her family, and to the memory of Margaret. "We will continue to be instruments of transformation. We will continue to prove that it is possible to overcome any adversity. We will continue to show that love, courage, and persistence can move mountains." Our story is still being written, and it will be a story of hope, of healing, and of service to others. This is our inheritance for the next generations. This is our legacy of love. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of overcoming and transformation. Do you believe Jennifer made the right decisions in facing the Thompson family instead of running away? How would you react if you discovered such deep family secrets? Share your opinion in the comments. We love reading your sincere thoughts on these emotional journeys. Leave your like if the story touched you, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories about strength, family, and the human capacity to transform suffering into hope.